Okay, good day, everyone. So I will be discussing today gender mainstreaming in extension so that we can come up with gender responsive extension programs. So let me share my screen. This is the outline of the presentation. We have gender responsive extension program as described in CMO1 series of 2015. And then identifying the needs of the community. We will also be talking about gender analysis tools, and of course, the harmonized gender and development guidelines. So what are gender responsive extension programs? It refers to a collaborative set of activities designed by higher education institutions to contribute to the empowerment of both the institution and of course the identified communities so that we can promote and achieve the core value of gender equality. It involves the packaging, promotion, demonstration, application of appropriate technologies. So for your college, you will be transferring technology. So this one is also included. Tools, processes, and products generated from GAD research. And other activities to create gender-responsive organization, community, and the environment. Higher education institutions shall serve as model for GAD mainstreaming. So through technology transfer and livelihood programs, as I have mentioned, since we have here, your college is more involved in technology transfer. And also, of course, you can also contribute in the livelihood programs, which will incorporate financial literacy, technical assistance, and other extension services. Now, there are different components in mainstreaming gender in extension. For example, we have technology transfer, bringing into the identified community tested and mature innovations. So pag meron po kayo na-develop na tool or na-develop na technology, then you can share it with the community so that it can help them improve their livelihood. And then we also have generated knowledge, structure, system, and methods that are gender responsive, we can actually transfer it to the community that we have adopted. And then pwede ring livelihood program with financial literacy. It is capability building projects that shall enable the beneficiaries, both men and women, to earn through livelihood skills training, including the transfer of financial knowledge, information, and applications. So whenever we introduce to them a livelihood program, it is very important that we also teach them how to manage their finances involved in their earnings in that particular livelihood program. And pwede rin po siya sa technical assistance. This one is the provision of professional expertise such as consultancy services, mentoring, counseling, advisorship, etc. by trainers or professionals and GAD experts. In our institution, we are offering technical assistance dun po sa mga iba nating partner agencies wherein we conduct GAD trainings with them. And then tayo din po, we can offer technical assistance kung ano man yung kailangan technical assistance na community that you have adopted. For example, in the Department of Education, we conducted gender mainstreaming in research. Recently po, we have a partner with Phil Rice and then Rice Bees Castillejos, wherein we conducted training gender mainstreaming in their extension projects also. Okay, so that is also one possible way of trying to mainstream gender in extension programs. And then of course we have advocacy, the dissemination of information through media, seminars, meetings, conferences, symposia, workshops, lectures, speakership, and distribution of IEC materials. So whenever we go to the community, kung meron po tayo naka-ready na mga GAD materials, GAD IEC materials, we can also share with our community. Like for example, ang Butolan, I think they have this an NVAUC program in their partner communities wherein nag-training po sila about VAUC. And then also they provide IEC materials para they can learn from those materials. And then nung nakaraan din po with our extension program sa agriculture sa San Narciso, we also distributed IEC materials kasi kapanahunan po yan ng discussion on RA 11313. And also, it's part of the 18-day NVAUC campaign. So we also have given the barangay officials, the flyers that they can use and they can distribute to their community members. Okay, so that could also be part of your extension program. And then, of course, we can establish linkages. It's the establishment of partnership or networking with line agencies, government and non-government organizations, and civil society organizations at the local and international levels for projects related to gender and development. Hopefully, we can establish also linkages internationally when it comes to gender and development. So right now, we naka-invite naman po tayo ng speaker na from international speaker na nakapag-deliver sa atin when about the topic gender in research. Okay. So according to CMO1 series of 2015, the gender responsive extension programs shall serve as vehicle of higher education institutions to help promote gender equality, poverty reduction, and sustainable development. Now we have been conducting a series of trainings in gender and development. What we foresee now is to be able to transfer our advocacy dun sa ating mga partner communities. And ito nga po, we are guided by this so that we can be or we can have gender responsive extension programs. Like, we can give them access to privileges and opportunities. Pwede tayo magkaroon ng program about human rights, about equality and role modification, social empowerment of men, women, and LGBT. It could also be about governance and administration. Then, kung kailangan din po nila ng technical assistance, so pwede rin yan about critical legal issues and procedures, and also similar trust and policy enhancement articulated by the Magna Carta of Women. One example is the disaster risk preparedness, mitigation, and also peacekeeping. So in a nutshell, ito po ang Magna Carta of Women. So it involves food security and resources for food production. So I know CIT related din po siya sa food production. So pwedeng i-anchor natin yung program dyan na naka-angkla sa Magna Carta of Women. It could also be about skills training. It could also be about access to information, employment, livelihood opportunities. So any program po na anchored to the Magna Carta of Women, and then we address issues of men and women. So that could tell us whether our extension program is gender responsive or not. So if we are able to address some concerns involved in the Magna Carta of Women, then that means we are somehow producing or developing a gender responsive extension program. Now I will show you some approaches. Now, we wanted to have a gender responsive program, pero ano yung practical tips on how we can really communicate with our community and really address their concerns and issues when it comes to gender and development. So what I will share with you is the use of gender analysis matrix. This is an analytical tool that uses participatory approaches. So when we say participatory approaches, part of the community or the community partners are involved. So they are already involved in identifying the project, in monitoring the project, and also in evaluating the project. So that's why it's participatory, okay? So it's using those approaches to identify and analyze gender issues affecting the community, and of course to analyze the differences in the situation of men and women. And that was developed by Rani Parker in 1993. So how do we describe GAM? So what are the benefits of GAM? So you can see, taking control or making decision do sa program nila, nandun siya sa yellow na circle. Taking part and conducting consultation, nandun naman po siya sa orange. And then giving them information and being part of the community, nandun siya sa red, so medyo mas malayo. But if you will do participatory approaches, that means nata-target nyo talaga yung gusto ng community or yung need ng community. So in using GAM, the community itself will identify the problem affecting them and they will even provide the solution. Tayo sa PRMSU, ang role natin is to, after they identify the problem, to help them solve the problem. We also ask them how they think they can provide the solution. Tapos tulungan po natin sila along the way on how they can solve those problems. So Ronnie Parker created gender analysis matrix to serve two purposes. Number one, to provide a community-based technique for the identification and analysis of gender difference or gender differences in order to assess the different impacts of development interventions on men and women. So take note, when we are doing a gender-responsive extension program, kailangan tingnan natin yung differences ng output depending on how the men and women are affected. We will go into that detail, trying to investigate how men are affected and how is it different from the effects on women. Okay? Then also another purpose of GAM is to initiate a process of analysis that identifies and challenges in a constructive manner assumptions about gender roles in the community. We also wanted to know the gender roles in the community because it will somehow affect the implementation of the program. Okay, you will understand me better kapag meron na po tayong pinakitang examples. Now, what are the three basic principles of GAM? Participating men and women possess all necessary information about themselves and their community. Tayo po, nasa labas tayo ng community. Maybe, from bird's eye view, or nakikita natin yung problema nila. But, our perception about their problem may be different from the actual problem that they have identified. So, lagi po natin iisipin that they know what their problems are. Kaya nga sinabing participating men and women possess all necessary information that we need. So we ask them their problems. We analyze together with them how we can resolve those issues and concerns. Yeah. Now, application of GAM doesn't require the community to have gender expertise. So kahit po sila, they are not experts about gender. Hindi sila masyado nagtra-training on gender. But tayo po sa PRMSU, our employees, our faculty members are well-trained kapag dating sa gender. So the expertise on gender is on us. Tapos no need naman na they are expert on this as long as the facilitators and then the extensionists are well-versed when it comes to gender and development and when it comes to gender issues and concerns. Another principle of GAM is the application of GAM facilitates transformative change. So ang aim po talaga natin, especially I think when sa parameter ng ating accreditation is about the impact assessment. So we wanted to introduce transformative change into the society or into the community that we have adopted. So yun dapat yung ma-share natin what could be our evidences telling na na-transform natin itong community na to. So that is also another application of GAM. So GAM does not begin with an assessment of the current situation like most traditional analysis, but it's actually talking about the people and pwedeng ma-share nila doon kung ano yung mga nag-exist na problems nila that until now are still problems and then how you can resolve it. Okay, it enables the community to articulate a full range of expectations. So aside from identifying the problem, aside from telling you what the solutions could be, so sasabihin din nila what's expected from this program. What do we expect from the intervention that you are going to introduce? So I will be sharing with you GAM tools. So we have the first tool and then the second tool. The first one is the level of analysis. Na in the level of analysis, dapat makuha po natin ang opinions ng mga babae, ng mga lalaki, and ma-analyze din natin how the household could be affected by the program that we are going to introduce. Now, GAM tool 2 is an impact analysis naman, looking at how labor, time, resources, social-cultural factors are affected by the program. Okay, so yan. Meron tayong tool na pwedeng gamitin to have this analysis and also to have this impact analysis. So very simple lang po ang GAM. Na I am hoping that when you go to your communities, ayan, mai-incorporate na natin si gender and analytical matrix or the GAM. So you have here, pwede kayong gumawa ng columns, how the labor is affected, how the time is affected, how the resources are affected, and even the culture, how are they affected. Tapos dito nga, we have here, women, men, household, and how the community as a whole is affected by the program. Okay. So gamitin po natin to. How do we use this? Pwede rin po nating i-change yung mga labor. Yung columns po na yan, na labor, time, resources, culture, we can change it depending on what we wanted to investigate or what we wanted to change in the community. So level of analysis. Women, they represent women who are in the target group. So women in the community, we can also have men. Of course, we should have men also to represent the community. And then ang households naman, it represents all men and women and even children in their households, okay? So community represents its holistic na. It's as a whole, it's taken as a whole. It represents everyone in the. Okay, now we have to define what community is. So involve leaders and ang ating mga members ng community. Then impact analysis. Ito lang example. We have here 4 categories of impact analysis. But as I have mentioned, pwede po nating baguhin. Bawa, labor. Are we going to introduce new technology? Or are we going to teach them new skills? If I remember in your guide plan and budget, you have mentioned about I-lived activity, wherein it involves, according to Ma'am Hazel, it involves training, mechanical and technical, I think. Trainings are provided to our community partners. So yan po. So labor is affected. The level of skills that they will have after the training. So titingnan natin. And then yung labor capacity nila, how many people and how much they can do after the training. Now yung time naman, this refers to the changes in the amount of time na nag-work sila, na mas napapabilis po ba yung production nila? Mas nagiging maganda yung return kasi mas mabilis yung production. So mas nakakapag-produce sila ng mas maraming product. So there, time is also analyzed. And then we also have resources. Sa resources naman po, we look into how the following factors are affected. Pwedeng income, land, extension information, or control over resources kung nag-increase ba, nakakagamit po ba sila ng resources na yon. Halimbawa, nag-introduce kayo ng technology. How many of the community members are able to access the technology? Ilang mga babae at mga lalaki ang nakakapag-access po ng technology? And sino yung nagde-decide kung kanino nila ipapagamit yung technology that you introduced? So, meron ding impact analysis on the resources. Dahil pwede pong na-train sila, maaring they were able to be trained sa skill training, but they were not able to access the technology or the resources that they have. Okay, so i-analyze din po natin yan sa GAM. Now, for the social-cultural factors, it captures changes in gender roles or status as a result of intervention. Now, pwede yan po doon sa stereotypical roles ng babae at lalaki. Did it change? Nagkaroon po ba ng opportunities din ang mga babae to have the skills na kino-consider before na men's skills? Okay? So, did it improve? Nagkaroon sila ng opportunity to have another skills that they can develop. So, as I have mentioned po, sobrang mabilis na gamitin ng gender analysis matrix. So, we have here, we use a plus sign. If the outcome is consistent with the community, cultural practices, and project goals, or kapag positive yung naging impact sa kanila. Minus sign naman if it's contrary to our goals, or naging negative yung effect sa kanila. And then question mark siguro if we are unsure really on how it has affected them. So is it time consuming? Mahirap po ba ang GAM? Time consuming siya kasi your community partners, the community members are the ones deciding kung ano yung mga naging positive effects negative effects sa kanila. Hindi po tayo yung magdidikta, hindi po tayo lang yung mag-a-analyze, but we involve them. Para ano lang din po yan sa research, di ba? Parang you interview them, kinukuha nyo sa kanila yung data and not from our perspective. Okay? So, however, once completed and it's coded, the matrix can display distinctive effects of the proposed intervention. So, I think this could be a good attachment, yung mga sinulat ng ating mga community partners, so that makikita talaga yung evidence na sila yung nag-evaluate ng program. Okay? So, the GAM can be used at the same time, hindi ka lang nakapag-evaluate ng program, it has also become, there was also a gender dimension in how you evaluated the program. Diba? Pag nagawa nyo na po siya, halimbawa, earlier nakakome up po kayo, please share it with us so that we can give this example to other colleges. Diba? Para ma-duplicate din nila on how it's done. And then the GAM can be used, it can be used from the planning pa lang po. So when you are to go, you will go to the community and you're still planning. So from planning pa lang to the design and monitoring, to evaluation of the project or monitoring, kasama po siya. Pwedeng gamitin ang GAM. So sa simula, tanungin niyo po, di ba, kung ano yung problems nila. And then yung along the implementation, mag-conduct na naman kayo ng GAM. And then after the implementation, you have another GAM matrix. Okay? So at the planning stage, it can help determine whether potential. So pwede nila pong lagyan ng positive, ay ito yung magiging epekto sa amin nitong sinasabi nilang programa. Ay pwedeng maglagay din sila ng negative sa planning stage pa lang. Ay parang hindi maganda itong training na to sa time namin. It will be a burden for us. So from there, makikita nyo na kung ano yung mga concerns pa nila even before you implement the actual program. Okay? And you can somehow address it at an early stage. Okay? Next is at the design stage. It may influence changes as a consequence of gender considerations. So while you are designing, yun nga, nakikita nyo yung pwedeng positive and negative effects sa kanila. So when you design, you have all of this in mind, and then that means ma-incorporate nyo na sila dun sa yung mga concerns nila, you can already address dun pa lang sa design stage. And of course, at the monitoring and evaluation, we will be able to know the impact of the program to our community partners, to our community members. Okay? So in an educational context of development, iba po sa education yung extension program natin, we can even change yung mga components, rows and columns. Like for example, we can change it to male students, male staff, female staff, and then as I have mentioned, pwede rin natin baguhin po yung columns. Sa horizontal matrix naman po, ay sa columns could actually be changed into activities, time, skills, resources, outputs. It depends on your program. Now, i-share ko lang po to. It's an analysis, is a case study of India silk reeling. The intention of the program is really good. Okay. This one is a case of poorly paid Indian women doing silk reeling to successful entrepreneurs. So, laborers sila, they are doing the silk reeling and then they are paid for it. Pero they don't own the business. However, reeling work is somehow seasonal and it's uncertain. If women have no work, so pag wala silang trabaho noon, the family won't eat. Then men also in the community have no regular work because they believe that it is beneath their dignity to work for someone else in the village. So parang pag sila yung trabahador, di ba? The cultural factor is affecting yung kanilang employment. Now, in the project, they tap existing women's group para magkaroon sila ng silk reeling business, and they carry out all the business aspects. So you can see the intention of the program is really good dahil nga very seasonal yung sa kanilang, yung pagtatrabaho nila doon sa reeling business. So they might as well own their own business. It's a 5 weeks intervention or intensive training wherein they develop the skills of the women and also their confidence in being able to manage or in being entrepreneur. Kasama na rin dyan yung basic bookkeeping. Yun nga po, di ba, yung financial literacy, how they could manage the finances in the business, kasama na rin. Then project included consultation also with the women's menfolk about their involvement. So kinausap din yung mga asawa po nila about how they will be involved in the project. And then mag-partner ang dalawang babae na may bibili, may magbabantay dun sa business nila, may bibili sa market, and so on. So they are doing it alternately. Then small loans or capital, puhunan, was given to them. And then subsequent, so may kasunod pa, if they still need a working capital, so meron pa rin binigay sa kanila. And then kung kailangan pa ng follow-up support, so kulang pa rin yung finances, meron din binigay sa kanila. Now the NGO insists that the reading be licensed under their names. So para yung mga babae, magkakaroon sila ng sariling business. And then yung involvement ng male is very limited. Ang involvement nila kapag halimbawa na nasira yung reading unit, and then if they have to buy husk or for fuel, and then in effect, yung project is actually proposing a role reversal kasi di ba yung mga babae yung magbe-business, sila yung major na magtatrabaho, sila yung mag-earn ng income. So it's proposing that role na reversal na the women will be the ones working and earning. Now ito yung result ng GAM. According to the women, productive activity, because magiging productive activity siya kasi they will own their business. And then livestock rearing as before. So, and then also magkakaroon ng increased group activities kasi they will be involving themselves sa market. Yan, mas ma-expose sila. Sa time naman po, magkakaroon sila ng increased working hours or working days. So somehow fulfillment sa kanila kasi they can work. They are able to cope with domestics. Siyempre may mga gawain sa bahay and then they are able to cope with it. Pero ito naman daw po yung mga negative. The unit closes on days when they have to go to the market kasi kailangan nila kumuha ng mga materials, so kailangan nilang isara. And then also mahirap daw po i-divide yung cocoon. Mahirap paghiwa-hiwalayin into group. And then they even get tired and not enough time. So they were not given enough time na to do their domestic or reproductive work. So nahirapan, may mga nahirapan po i-manage yun. Pero they have learned so many skills like bidding for cocoons, selling the silk, awareness in terms of the business aspects. So they are learning, assessing the quality of the cocoons and silk. So aside from the knowledge, they also gain skills. They are able to calculate. They can handle large amount of money, and then nagkaroon din sila ng decision making in the group decision making. So they were given a chance to decide. Okay, another positive naman, according to that is about activities, time, and skills. Tapos tinignan din yung resources. Sa resources naman, positive dahil nagkaroon sila ng negosyo na ang lisensya ay pangalan nila. And then positive kasi kaya naman nila yung manual labor, and then they have these marketing skills. Then they have money also to buy fuel, and then they can hire. Kaya naman nila mag-hire ng makakatulong sa kanila. For the economic inputs, of course, pag nag-introduce tayo ng livelihood program, we are really looking into the economic inputs. Pero dapat, ang sinasabi po ng training natin ay we should not be confined only in the economic inputs. Maaaring nakita natin nag-increase yung kanilang income, but there are other negative effects of the program. So ganun po yung dapat nating baguhin or paano natin i-improve yung ating extension program so that it will be gender responsive. Then, ang nangyari naman po dyan, nag-increase naman yung savings nila, and then there's a slight increase in the income. However, nagkaroon po sila ng debt, or nagkaroon sila ng mga utang because of the loans that the NGOs are giving, or the NGO is providing them. Now, ang social impact, marami din pong naging social impact sa kanila. There is a change in the status from wage earner to being entrepreneur. Nagkaroon sila ng mobility kasi nga kung saan sila nagpupunta, kung saan sila nakikipag-usap. And then they were able to become bold, and then they are able to communicate more, or they gained confidence. Ngayon daw, they are conscious about their time and money. nagkaroon din sila ng self-respect kasi nga nagkaroon sila ng sarili nilang negosyo. And then po, nagkaroon din ng better food and other stuff dun sa family nila. So nakapag-provide din po sila sa kanilang family. Now, negative is the decision making in the household remains the same. So that means yung mga lalaki pa rin ang nakakapag-final say sa bahay nila. Then some conflict over sharing cocoons, time spent on meetings. So nagkakaroon ng mga meetings, siguro nagiging burden po sa kanila yun. And then the quality of silk. Then, of course, we have to analyze. Yun nga po ha, number 1, we analyze the impact separately. Tingnan natin yung impact sa babae at tingnan natin yung impact sa mga lalaki. Naging part ng program. Okay? Now, positive. They are now working in a family unit. When dati, hindi sila nag-work. Pero ngayon, sa family, the business of the family, yan. Nakaka-work naman sila. But negative is they have to escort the women to the bus stop at night. So, naging burden para sa kanila yung ihatid nila, susunduin nila sa gabi. Yan din, yung time nila, it was affected, accompanying women to the bus stop and waiting for long hours of their return. So, naging negative ang impact po sa kanila. And then sa skills naman, they gained some skills like reeling and other skilled tasks. Okay, however, negative kasi they are not able to calculate profit and loss siguro po for women. Sorry. So I think this one is skills for negative skills sa mga babae na they were not able to really calculate the profit and loss. Sa men, ang resources nila is their physical labor. Economic inputs naman, how they are affected, it's also positive. There are some savings. And then they are supportive of women's activities. However, some are unhappy about escorting. Some are being resentful. And some are uneasy at women's boldness. Kasi nga, ito na yung role reversal. So pag ganyan po, in the household naman, negative is that girls or yung mga batang babae sa household, sila na yung gumagawa ng reproductive na gawain ng nanay. Because yun nga, naging busy ang kanilang mga nanay. And siguro hindi rin nakakatuloy yung mga tatay sa bahay when it comes to reproductive work. Kaya yung mga bata, ang batang babae, ang naggawa ng mga domestic work. And child labor increases. However, it's actually inside the home na nag-increase yung burden naman doon sa mga bata. Okay? Now, social impact for the household, children are happy kasi mas marami silang pera ngayon, mas marami silang resources. Other women in household have to do more domestic work. Okay, kasi parang nagiging multiple burden. Pagdating sa bahay, kailangan pa nila ng domestic work. Now, you can see there are negative effects, there are positive effects. Now, paano natin ititreat ito? Marami namang positive effects yung program. Should we stop the program? So I think dito, according to this study, madali naman pwede naman natin gawa ng paraan yung mga naging negative effects sa kanila. Like for example, in yung time, very time consuming ang meeting siguro and yung work nila doon sa cocoons, if we can limit the time of their productive work so that they can still have enough time doon sa reproductive work. So I think that will help them. Ano pa po? Yung isa naman, pwede tayo magpa-gender sensitivity training doon sa mga lalaking, sa mga asawa nila na it's okay kung nasa household sila, sila naman yung gumawa muna ng mga domestic works, di ba? It's a shared responsibility. And dapat yun nga sabi, yung iba nagiging resentful na gano'n na yung mga asawa nila parang, parang hindi sila kampante na gano'n yung sitwasyon. So we can have GST para they will be aware na hindi naman porke lalaki ka ay ikaw lang yung mag-work and hindi ka nagagawa sa gawaing bahay. So I think a gender sensitivity training can address those issues. So the good thing about it, along the implementation of the program, pag na-identify nyo na yung negative effect, you can resolve the issues or concerns. Diba po? Now, ano pa yung mga naging negative effects? So let's also analyze. Other negative effects, the expected increase in the income had not materialized. The price of silk had dropped and they were reluctant to sell at a loss. So malulugi lang sila. Resentment was growing. So among the mga lalaki or sa mga asawa nila, resentment was growing. And then their husbands also felt resentful at being excluded from the project kasi di ba very minimal na yung binigay sa kanila task for the project. Kaya siguro naging ganun din yung feeling nila. And they saw no benefits from the scheme and tried to cause trouble between the women by interfering. Then, it was noted that several husbands used violence against their wives. Some even became fatalistic and they could no longer find work kasi nga iniisip na magbe-business naman kayo, baka hindi kayo magstay dito sa work na to. Okay? They could no longer borrow money. Also, the entrepreneurs who engaged them before used to give them loans. They now had to beg relatives for help kasi nagpatong-patong yung kanilang utang. So with this additional negative effects, of course, ang response na natin dyan is to end or to stop the program kasi hindi na generally nakakabuti dun sa ating partner communities. So that's how we identify the impact of the program in our community. And by just using the GAM and then separating the analysis between men and women and how they are affected, then that means we are making our extension programs gender responsive. Okay, so ano mga gains niyan? They remain somewhat bolder kahit naman natapos na siguro yung programa, they were able to develop confidence in them. They were also very keen to see their children educated, so na-appreciate nila na dapat makapag-aral ang aking mga anak so that they can have a better future and they can have, so they can earn more in the future. Okay, so that is a case study. You can look at andyan po yung reference. So that's how we analyze the impact of our extension programs. Now, katulad po nito, sample na lang, we will no longer have the workshop on this, but you can look at, diba po, nagpapatraining tayo. How are the men and women affected? How is the household affected? How is the community affected? Paano sila naapektuhan when it comes to activities, when it comes to time, and when it comes to skills? Okay, so next po, yan, when it comes to resources also, economic inputs and social impact. As I have mentioned, pwede nyo pong baguhin yung mga columns. Another thing that we can use in our extension program is to come up with an activity profile. So bakit po kailangan natin ng activity profile? Now, so that we will be able to identify yung mga sharing ng time and effort and activities ng men and women sa household. And at the same time, alam natin kung kailan tayo mag-i-implement ng pa-training po sa kanila. If you are able to identify saan yung bakanteng oras nila, then dun po tayo pwedeng pumasok. Kasi there could be times na, sabihin natin, may meeting tayo 8 o'clock or mag-meet tayo 7:30. Ang skill training natin starts at 7:30. What if they are still busy doing their reproductive roles or the reproductive task? Diba? So maaaring hindi na sila maka-attend ng program or maka-attend ng skill training. Maaaring ma-left behind sila when it comes to the training schedule pa lang. So they won't be trained ang mga, lalo na yung mga kababaihan natin, baka hindi nila ma-experience yung training that you are offering because of that burden sa kanila, yung oras na yon. Okay, so that's why we have to look into their activity profile also. Yan nga. You can even use this para alam niyo po kung saan tayo papasok ng training sa kanila, kung ano yung mas convenient time para sa kanila. And should it be whole day or could it be half day? Kung saan po mas hindi magiging burden naman sa kanila yung pag-attend ng skills training natin. Another tool that you can use po is the Harvard tool wherein it talks about the access and control profile. So dyan naman po, titingnan natin kung may access ba sila doon sa mga resources na yun, nagagamit ba nila? Sino ang nagko-control ng resources na yun? Sino ang nag-decide kung sino ang makaka-access ng resources? So we can take a look at that. And then pag sa tingin natin hindi balanced, then somehow pwede mag-intervene ang ating program. And we can make them aware na dapat meron din control over resources ang both men and women. Oh, questions? Pag may question po, i-address na lang po muna kay Sir Mark. And then hopefully I will be able to address your questions siguro through chat. Now, introduction to program and project development. Meron po tayong tinatawag na Harmonized Gender and Development Guidelines. Now, when you Google nyo lang po yan, Haga-Daga, you can look for or you can find different checklists. Involves tourism, agriculture, natural resource, infrastructure, and meron din po for technology. So you can look at that, and then that will serve as your guide doon sa preparation naman ng ating documents. Now, it's very important that na okay kasi po yung mga document natin to support na na-address natin lahat dun sa parameters po ng Haga-Daga. Now, in Haga-Daga, it involves a baseline data pa lang from the project identification and planning. So these are the components. Ito po ay for agriculture and agrarian reform, box 8. But you can look for a box for technology transfer. We'll see if, I think I have an Excel for this. And then, yan po, from project identification, baseline data pa lang. Dapat meron na kayong baseline data ng inyong mga community partners. And in the project design or in the process, there are also components that we have to address para masabi natin na it's gender responsive or it's gender sensitive. And then, of course, doon sa impact ng program or sa outcome. Okay, next po is monitoring targets and indications. Halimbawa po sa technology, you can see there, adoption rate of technology. Okay, in agriculture, membership and leadership in farmers' organization, participation in training and similar activities, and so on. It's very important that you have your sex disaggregated data from the initial meeting pa lang po. And then after the sex disaggregated data, meron din dapat kayong gender analysis wherein you go beyond the quantitative or the statistics, the quantitative data of the sex disaggregated data, you go beyond that, and that is when you are doing your gender analysis. Now, you are now trying to investigate ano ba yung mga problema nila ng kababaihan at ng mga kalalakihan in this community. Okay, and then there is an interpretation. Meron namang GAD score or yan, para masabi po natin if the proposed project has promising GAD, if it is a gender-sensitive project, or it's a gender-responsive project. Yan. So isa-isahin po natin. Ito yung mga components which are very important. We have the participation of men and women in the project, identification pa lang. So dapat po, when you still identify the project, nakapagpa-meeting kayo, you have your male and female participants. And you have your data, which is sex disaggregated. That means telling us how many are male, how many are female attendees. So ang attachment po niyan ay ang attachment nito ay ang attendance. And of course, you can take pictures. And then collection of sex disaggregated data in the analysis of the development problem. So if you have po yung training needs assessment, or meron kayong parang pretest sa kanila to assess, that's one way to assess ano yung kailangan nilang skills. Halimbawa po, may mga skills. Pwede kayong parang sa research po, di ba? Meron kayong questionnaire. And then merong skills. Then nakuha nyo yung result nun. You have to make it sex disaggregated. So that means paghiwalay natin male and female. And then we compare, di ba? Meron po tayo yung parang test of significant difference kung may pagkakaiba dun sa skills ng mga male at female. Or kung ano yung skills na alam na ng male, ano yung skills na alam na ng female. Ano yung skills na kailangan ng male, ano yung skills na kailangan ng female. Okay, so that is the use of sex disaggregated data. And then after nun po, you conduct this gender analysis, you analyze further to identify ano pa yung mga issues or concerns po nila. One way nga is to use the GAM. Diba? In the GAM, pwede nyo na makita yung mga present problems nila. And then you can analyze bakit magkaiba yung problems ng mga babae at mga lalaking community partners natin. Okay, next po, goals and objectives. Dapat sa goals and objectives natin, it's explicitly stated. Kung meron tayong gender objective, dapat nakalagay din po sa ating mga extension proposals. Now, activities. Ano naman yung activities to include and address identified gender issues? One example po, halimbawa, babay knowledge nila about violence against women and children. So that means ang pwede nating activity to address that gender issue is to have their training. Sa skills training naman, kung ano yung skills na need na i-develop ng mga babae at mga lalaki, then we can have a separate training for their skill development. Okay? Then next is the conduct of gender analysis of the planned project to anticipate gender-related issues. As I mentioned, tanungin natin sila. Diba, na-introduce na po natin yung project. Na-analyze nyo kung ano yung pagkakaiba sa issues or concerns nila. And then, pag na-introduce na natin, somehow na-implement, babalik po ulit tayo sa kanila. And then we conduct another gender analysis. So, yung GAM lang po, very simple GAM tool na pwede nating gamitin. Kung ayaw nyo pong ipasulat sa kanila or kung kailangan nila ng assistance, then you can interview them and kayo yung magsusulat kung ano po yung mga kasagutan nila. Okay, monitoring indicators and targets which also include reduction of gender gaps. Kung ano yung na-identify nyong gap, ba, sa skill training, mas konti ang skills, let's say, mas konti ang skills ng mga lalaki. So yun po yung gender gap that you want to address. For the project monitoring and evaluation system, okay, so after ng implementation, you will now monitor. And then you come up again, pasagutan nyo naman po ulit sa survey. Tapos i-separate na naman natin, i-analyze na naman natin mga sagot ng mga babae at mga lalaki. Nawala ba yung gender difference nila? Nawala ba yung statistical significant difference between male and female when it comes to skills? Okay? So tingnan nyo po, doon sa way ko na pagko-question, pwede nang pumasok si research when you analyze the impacts, when you analyze the problems, when you monitor the projects, okay? So ito nga po yung dream namin to really collaborate or parang pag-isahin si gender, natatarget mo na si gender, nagagawa mo pa si extension, and then you also come up with the research cum extension. Okay po? So yeah, hitting 3 birds with 1 stone. So pwede po natin gawin yan. And the resources and budgets for the activities. Let's identify the roles and responsibilities. So sino naman yung mga magko-control over the following resources? Sino yung mga responsibilities sa pag-conduct ng activities na ito? And then of course po, pwede tayo daw, ayan, plan coordination with PCW. Dr. Eden Beltran can help us kapag kailangan po talaga natin ng assistance ng PCW. Siya po ang may mga kakilala po from PCW para sa ating agency's GAD plans. Okay? And hopefully we can have yung hindi po natin natapos dati na gender audit. Yan, i-invite po ulit natin sila para we can finally have our GAD code after the gender analysis and gender or GAD audit. Ayan po yung mga scores kung promising GAD prospects ba siya, gender sensitive ba siya, gender responsive, and fully gender responsive. Now, hindi po manggagaling sa gender development yung whole budget for the extension. Pero may nakita po ako mga nilagay ni Ma'am Hazel dun sa mga budget na may mga extension po siya. It depends pa rin po sa PCW kung i-endorse nila yung particular project. We are still waiting po kung i-endorse nila yon, kung papayag sila na it's GAD project or GAD activity. Kung papayag po, kung maaprubahan po yun, that means you can get the whole budget dun sa ating gender and development na GAD plan and budget na prepare for CIT. Kung hindi naman po, that means you still have your extension budget, pero we attribute some percentage of your budget na gender responsive siya. To tell kung gender responsive ba, gender sensitive ba, or fully gender sensitive yung ating extension project. So ito po yung plan namin with extension. Nakapag-usap na po kami ni Ma'am Dr. Ebal at saka ni Sir Mark about this na we will come up with this one po for your proposals, for your project reports. Now we can calculate now. We can finally use the Hagadaga para we can calculate how much will be attributed to gender. Okay po? Yan. So, pwede po kasi na yung programa nyo, it could be calculated as fully gender responsive. So, the whole budget That means it was used for gender also, or it's a gender responsive program. Okay po? So yan po ang gagawin namin with extension and GAD. So we have here an example po. This is for agriculture. Yan lang yung example nila. Ganito po si Hagadaga. We will give a soft copy. So it's not a face-to-face seminar. So bibigyan na lang po namin kayo ng soft copy for technology transfer through Ma'am Hazel na lang po. Then yan. Participation of women and men in the project identification. So you can see number 1.1. Has the project consulted men and women on the problem or issue that the intervention must solve and on the development of the solution? So 0 ang score kasi wala nakalagay dun sa document. So it's very important that it is reflected in the document. Kapag hindi po siya naka-reflect dun sa document, that means walang ganung consultation na nangyari. Even though nag-consult kayo, even though nagpa-meeting kayo, but it was not stated, then ang mag-score ng magbabalidate po kasi niyan, pag binalidate niya, ang score ay 0. Okay? So as I have mentioned, kailangan may attachment. Like for example, in this area, ang attachment lang po natin ay ang attendance. Okay, next. Have women's inputs been considered in the design of the project? So pwede po yung, ano ba, nag-interview kayo or meron kayo nung GAM. Pwede nyo ng attachment yung mga sinabi ng mga babaeng participants dun sa project. Okay? So that means, mami-mention nyo na kung ano yung mga sinabing input ng mga babae. Okay? So whenever I discuss this, nakaka-excite po na makita yung report na complete package siya. So yan nga po, if you can magiging pioneer kayo with the use of this GAM and then Hagadaga. Nagawa na po namin sa CTE yung sa ibang report, pero gagawin pa lang namin yung sa paggamit din po ng GAM. Yan. Kasi mga bata, doon sa existing program po kasi mga bata yung mga participants. So siguro po when we come up with a project na mga teachers din yung participants, yan, pwede na namin gamitin si GAM. Pag nagawa nyo na po siya, please give us a copy of the report and we will verify po yung ating Hagadaga and then we will compile it para it can serve also as an example, a good example ng proposals, ng document with attachments, good example ng reports na pwede pong gayahin ng ibang colleges. So are both men and women seen as stakeholders, partners, or agents of change? So yun nga po, depende kasi doon sa mga naka-attach na documents. Has the project top sex disaggregated data? So nagkaroon ba kayo ng presentation ng table that it's sex disaggregated and you identified how male and female are different when it comes to their skills? So pag meron po, you attach that and you can get yes. I forgot to explain the scoring. So ganyan po ang scoring. Pag 1.1, you be guided by this. Yan, possible scores. Pag no, that's 0. Pag partly yes, that's 0.33. Pag yes, that's 0.67. So be guided by this kasi may mga iba pong rows na iba din yung scoring. Okay? So yan, pare-pareho po sila. And then ito po, iba na naman. Pag no, you score it with 0. Kapag partly yes, it's 1.0. Kapag yes, it's 2.0. So has the project top sex disaggregated data and gender-related information from secondary sources? So katulad po nito, use poverty database monitoring but not sex disaggregated data. So baka ginamit lang po nila yung available online pero it was not separated sa male or female. Okay, kaya ang sagot, ang ano po nila ay 0. Conduct of gender analysis. So yun nga po ang sinasabi ko ang gender analysis kasi the GAM could also be used as your gender analysis already. Kasi meron na pong discussion doon how they will be affected. Men and women are affected. Okay, so that is an attachment. Okay. And then yun din po, gender equality goals. Do project objectives explicitly refer men and women? Do they target women's agricultural production? So you can see here, sabi nila it's partly yes. So ang score po ay either 0, 1, or 2. So partly yes is 1. It is cited in general objectives is to enhance family income of farmers and training on expertise development. And then last po, ay ito pong isa. Does the project have gender equality outcomes? So dapat nakalagay doon sa ating objectives. Ano yung gusto nyong equality outcome nitong proyekto na to? Okay? So maganda po talaga magsama dito ang gender and development and extension, and papasok din po of course si research, so that I think one parameter is research na resulting to extension, and research also telling us the impact, tama po ba? Impact of the program. So yeah, magiging 0 po tayo pag non-mentioned in the documents. It's just like the parameters also in any accreditation, but this time we are guided by the Hagadaga. Now, matching of strategies, syempre depende sa gender issue, dapat makita, it should be evident that we are trying to solve that particular gender issue. Yan, diba? Identified activities. There were activities identified, but no clear indication if it will reduce gender gaps and inequality. So dapat it's, again, explicitly stated in the document how it will reduce the gender gap or inequality, okay? Do the project activities build on women's and men's knowledge and skills? Project beneficiaries are also recipients of agrarian reform program. So yun nga, dapat mas nakalagay po detalyado dun sa ating documents. Next is the project addressing the array of women's agricultural activities. This is for agriculture, so hindi na po, unless you have a technology which can be used for agriculture. So, meron nga po tayong generic. Kalimbawa, walang tool. Walang agad-agad tool for your particular project. Meron naman po tayong tool na generic siya. And then, meron din po tayong tool for education. Meron din po tayong tool for technology. So, yan. Let's be guided by this Hagadaga para alam po natin ano yung mga magre-reflect dun sa ating reports. Okay? Yan din po. Will women and men have equal access? So, sino ba yung magbe-benefit kapag magbibigay kayo ng loan? Sino ba yung magbe-benefit sa extension services natin? Ilan yung participants na babae? Ilan yung participants na lalaki? Ilan yung nakaka-attend na training sa mga babae, sa mga lalaki? Sino yung nakakagamit ng technology? So, that's how we should reflect those things on our document. And syempre, ginagawa po natin, pwedeng ginagawa naman na talaga siya. Hindi natin masasabi na hindi natin ini-involve ang mga babae. Ini-involve, however, kulang lang po tayo siguro sa paglagay sa ating documents. Okay, next. Has the project devised strategies to overcome constraints? Diba nga, along the implementation, you will be able to identify na constraints. So, pwede nyo na sabihin din ano yung mga naging plans nyo to address those constraints. Diba? Okay, so monitoring and indicators. Does the project include gender equality targets? So, tingnan kung nandoon nakasite sa ating program or sa ating document. And then after the implementation, even the monitoring, yun nga, yung sex disaggregated data, whether nag-improve po ba yung skills nila or hindi. So, you have to indicate. Yan, so marami pa po yan aspeto. We also have the resources and then relationship with agencies, guide efforts. And then you have to sum up para malaman lang po natin if ano yung category nyo. Is God invisible? Does it offer promising God prospects? So is it gender sensitive? Is it gender responsive? Siyempre ang aim po natin is to make it gender responsive. And mas maganda if we can make it fully gender responsive so that 100% of the project could be attributed to gender and development. And maybe sa next God plan and budgeting, pwede na po natin siya isama sa God plan and budget. Now, permission to use, naipaalam ko naman po to from CTE, permission to use the document from College of Teacher Education. So ito po yung una naming na-work out na document or reports nila. So you can see here, rationale. It is through literacy that one is empowered to interact in his community and realizes his worth. So you can change the his po, di ba? His or her. That he can do, which later on make him do things and so on. Literacy and numeracy are basic skills that a learner must develop. The ability to read, write, speak, compute are significant knowledge which can affect the well-being of a person to attain success. The College of Teacher Education Extension Program Office will be conducting this program to assist grade 7 students in terms of assessing and evaluating their reading and numeracy skills. The goal is to improve both reading and numeracy skills of each student. So you can see, kapag may hawak po kayong hadaga-daga, and kapag i-scorean nyo po ito, ano po kaya ang score? Okay, ang score po nito ay magiging 0. Though, maganda po talaga yung aim ng program. Aim namin ay to develop the literacy, the reading literacy and numeracy. Pero it's not just explicitly stated kung sino-sino yung mga participants. Wala din pong explicit statement ng GAD objectives or the gender and development objectives. So tingnan natin yung mga objectives po. Plan and prepare activities of partnership strategies and so on. Identify techniques to address the learner's need to improve reading and numeracy skills. Arrange and prepare the materials suited to the needs of the students. Tap LGUs and other stakeholders in visiting areas where technology is not available. Okay? So, diba? Maganda po talaga yung mga objectives. You have to create strategies in remediation and enrichment to facilitate learning. Monitor the progress of each learner in attaining educational improvement. So, yan na po yung budget. So that means walang mai-attribute kay gender and development and if we have this document. Now we improve it. Or syempre na-improve natin yan. So we can change it to his or her. So you can change that. And then ito na po, pwede na natin dagdagan. Dadagdagan lang natin ang document and attachments of course for evidences. A consultation meeting was conducted on. There were blank number of females and blank number of male teachers, administrators, and partner implementers who attended the consultation meeting. Then the following issues were raised. Pwede akong maglalagay doon. Sinabi ng babaeng principal, ganito. Ng lalaking principal, ganito. Babaeng teacher, ganito ang sinabi. Lalaki teacher, ganito ang sinabi. Okay? So lalagyan ko din, pwede kong lagyan po ng quotations. So if we can do it, we can extend it further. Of course, you can come up with a quality research out of your extension project. Kami po, meron na kami nagawa with CTE, with Sir Mark and Sir Dalusong, yung dati pa pong reading program, wherein, ayan, tinignan namin yung result ng ating extension activity dun sa performance or sa reading skills ng mga estudyante. And then you can see here, pwede nyo pong idagdag, or dapat natin idagdag, a sex disaggregated data about the reading literacy of students was produced. The following shows that blank number of male students are, and blank number of female students are slow readers. In terms of reading literacy, male students lag behind female students. So I'll show you the chart. Ayan. Yan po, it's already sex disaggregated kasi nga nakita natin kung ilang male, kung ilang female, okay? And then ilang percentage nung mas marami ba sa male or female ang naglalag behind when it comes to literacy. So of course, you have to conduct gender analysis. So gender analysis was conducted. For this case, ano lang kami, quantitative. But of course, hindi lang pa nag-reflect, but since may tutors, pwede nilang i-investigate pa yung mga bata. Doon sa aming research before, nalagyan po na namin ng qualitative yung mga sinabi ng mga tutors about the skills, the reading literacy, the reading skills of the students before and after the program. Okay? So pwede rin po yan. And then you compare nga yung mga babaeng readers at lalaking readers. The profile of the participants have been reviewed to identify the reasons behind their reading literacy skills. Okay? And then ano po yung project objectives, diba? Yan pa rin, same pa rin project objective. But we included GAD objectives. So we have address reading literacy problems of both male and female students of the partner school. Then identify the issues behind the reading literacy problems of male and female students. Then address the gender gap in reading literacy of male and female students. Because nga male students, according to our data, lag behind when it comes to reading literacy. And yan din po yung mga sinasabi ng literatures in the Philippines. That in the Philippines, generally, male students are now lagging behind when it comes to literacy. Okay? So yan na po, konting improvement lang sa ating document and konting attachment, then we can make our program, we can report our program to be gender responsive, and at the same time, we can get or analyze the impacts of the program. Okay, so again, looking forward to seeing your extension project proposals and extension project reports, integrating gender and development in the reports and of course in the actual implementation. Pag gusto niyo po mag-conduct ng GAD seminar sa kanila, is okay po. We can propose it under GAD Plan and Budget 2022. Okay, para yun po yung directly na pwede natin ilagay sa gender and development. Pero yung extension project nga po, i-compute natin siya. It will be subjected to Hagadaga so that we will be able to identify how much percentage. Hindi po natin kukunin yung budget how much lang yung percentage that we can attribute lang na nagawa si gender because of the extension project. Okay po? So I will just share with you yung Excel. Okay, so you can see here po yung ating Excel. So we can also provide this with you. Pero I have here box 12 education. Mag-i-input pa po kami nung sa technology. We have fisheries, livelihood, food security, and ICT projects ready, and health projects. Pero just for you to be able to see po paano siya gumagana, it's better to use Excel kasi automatic na yung kanilang summation. And then, yung box 16, 17 po is for project monitoring. Yan. Pero for this, dito pa lang po tayo sa assessment of new and proposed projects. So you have here box 12. Ganyan lang po. We will be guided by this. As I have mentioned, 0, 0.33, 0.67. So pag partly yes, talin muna natin. Pag partly yes po ang sagot natin, so we will choose 0.33. Kapag let's say yes, then 0.67. Kapag yes, another 0.67. So yan na po yung sum niya for the first one. And then ganoon din po dito, collection of sex-based aggregated data. Kanina, you can see na may collection ng sex-based aggregated data. But this time, ang scoring po ay 0, 1, or 2. So dito tayo pupunta kay 2 kasi meron pong sex-based aggregated data. Gender analysis and identification of gender. Has the gender analysis been done? So meron naman. So 0, 1, or 2 na naman po. Then we'll have 2. Gender equality goals. So nung nakita nyo na po yung na-improve, nagkaroon na po ng gender equality goals and objectives. So lagyan natin ang scoring ay 0, 0.5, or 1. So this is, let's say, 1. Then dito po ay 1. So ganun lang po siya. And then it will generate a summary. Yan. Ang sum ng score, ayan po. So 11.83. So ano na po yung category niya? Is it gender responsive or gender sensitive? So if you think or take note, ang score ay 11.83. So let's go back to the interpretation. Ayan. So, ito po ay, ang Hagadaga score natin ay 11. So, it's a gender-sensitive program. So, that means 50% of the budget allocated for this project is considered as gender and development or gender-sensitive project. Okay, so, i-compute po natin yung 50% ng total budget na extension which could be attributed to gender and development. Again po, ine-emphasize ko po na hindi tayo kukuha with that, hindi tayo kukuha ng budget kay GAD Plan and Budget 2022, i-attribute lang natin siya or i-report natin siya that your extension program is 50% or is gender sensitive. Okay? So, yun lang mang po. And as I have mentioned, I am looking forward to seeing your reports and seeing your Hagadaga reports, and hopefully we can get yung promising GAD or syempre po gender sensitive programs, and of course eventually we will be having gender-responsive programs. And as I've mentioned po, pag nagawa nyo siya, please provide us with your report that we can compile, and this can serve as an example, a good example for other colleges who will be conducting gender-responsive extension projects. Okay, with that po, thank you very much for listening, and then just type in the chat box your questions, and then Sir Mark will tell me the questions, and then later, hopefully I can be with you later para po masagutan yung mga questions. I'm sorry kasi meron na po akong naunang schedule ng January 28. That's why I cannot be with you via Zoom na live. Okay? Thank you very much po ulit, and hope you learned from this discussion.